of our life. So we have to see as if it is the beginning of our life, and just forget about the bad things of yesterday. Past is only to learn the lessons, not to remember. And today's inspirational quote, failure is not the opposite of success. It is a part of success. It will not come just alone. Actually, failure first ceases and then success follows it. So we should not get depressed or frustrated by seeing the failure. It is only the process of reaching the success. And today is the birthday of the great scientist, chemist, engineer, inventor, businessman, and philanthropist Alfred Nobel in 1833. He held 355 different patents, dynamite being the most famous. The synthetic element nobelium was named after him. He owned Bofors, which he redirected from its previous role as primarily an iron and steel producer to a major manufacturer of cannon and other armaments. Having read a premature obituary which condemned him for profiting from the sales of arms, he bequeathed all his fortune to the Institute of Nobel Prize. So actually, before he is dead, it came in the newspapers that the scientist who found the dynamite has died, and it is great day for the world like that. So he really shocked to see such a message that his death is a good news for the world. So he could not digest it. So then the complete money that he has given it for Nobel Prize. Okay, and he says, if I have 1,000 ideas and only one turn out to be good, I am satisfied. Okay, so that is the inspiration. And he also says, it is my express wish that in awarding the prize, no consideration be given to the nationality of the candidates, but that was the most worthy shall receive the praise, whether to be Scandinavian or not. Okay, that is the greatness of Nobel. And there is another great mathematician, Martin Gardner. I like him very much. He has written so many books and mathematical puzzles and fallacies and paradoxes. On that, he has written so many articles, and he has maintained an article in Scientific American for 25 years. And he has written these mathematical games. So whenever I go to library, first thing I do is whether they are having Scientific American. And I used to go to that rack and find out that, and there is an article of Martin Gardner in that. Okay, now he is no more. He is not there. But when I was in IISc, I was a favorite of this particular article. He was considered the doyen of American puzzles. He was a prolific and versatile author, publishing more than 100 books. He says, if God creates a world of particles and waves dancing in obedience to mathematical and physical laws, who are we to say that he cannot make use of these laws to cover the surface of a small planet with living creatures? The universe is almost like a huge magic trick, and scientists are trying to figure out how it does what it does. Okay, that's it. And if you come to the 29th class of today, and we'll just browse through or revise whatever all we learned about A standard cycles. Okay, so we have seen the classification of 8 standard cycles as power cycles, refrigeration cycles, and then both of them gas cycles, vapor cycles. And in the gas cycles, we have done in detail about Carnot, Otto, Diesel, GL, Lenoir, Atkinson, Stirling, Ericsson, Bratton, Lenoir, all those cycles. And in vapor cycles, ideal Rankine cycle, and V3 heating and V3 generation, we have discussed, and we didn't go through in detail, but in some other chapter, we will do that. In refrigeration cycles, we will have gas cycles. If you reverse Carnot cycle, we will get reversed Carnot cycle. If you reverse Bratton cycle, we call it as Bell-Coleman cycle. So we know that refrigeration cycle is nothing but reversed power cycle. And in vapor cycles, we have vapor compression refrigeration system and vapor absorption refrigeration system. This is the classification, broad classification. And So then we have seen what are the A standard cycle assumptions. We have seen that we have to assume it is a perfect gas, and all processes are internally reversible, and heat exchange processes take place instead of heat addition and rejection. So instead of air burning in fuel, we assume that heat is exchanged to the air without changing in the composition. That's why we will have a closed cycle. And so the combustion process is replaced by heat exchange process. And Carnot cycles all are ideal processes. And this is the general configuration of a Carnot cycle. And efficiency, we know that 1 minus TL by TH. So the main thing we observe here is the efficiency of the Carnot cycle is increases as we increase the average temperature at which heat is supplied and decrease the average temperature at which heat is rejected. Okay. And coming to the Otto cycle, we have seen all the processes. I told you there is inlet and exhaust stroke, which normally we don't show it in the cycle. We show only these 4 processes: compression, combustion, expansion, and release. Okay. So this is that, and we have derived the efficiency, and efficiency is a function of only the compression ratio, RK, that is V1 by V2 is the compression ratio. And coming to the mean effective pressure, we didn't derive it, but you should be in a position to derive this. And it is a function of not only the compression ratio, but also the pressure ratio, P3 by P2 is called the pressure ratio, RP. And the efficiency increases with compression ratio and also with gamma. This is what we have seen. And then coming to the diesel cycle, again, only thing is the remaining 3 processes are same. Combustion process is different. Otto cycle, constant volume combustion, it is constant pressure combustion. And if you see the TS diagram and TV diagram, and here we define compression ratio, expansion ratio, and cutoff ratio. So cutoff ratio is V3 by V2. So because the fuel starts injecting at 2 and stops at 3, cuts off. And we derived the diesel cycle efficiency. And then we have, this is comparison of Otto cycle and diesel cycle. And we have discussed all these things. And then dual cycle, there where we have partial constant volume combustion and partial constant pressure combustion. And we have derived the dual cycle efficiency, which is a function of pressure ratio and compression ratio. And the mean effective pressure also we can derive. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to find out what is W expansion and what is W compression, and subtract it. You will get the worked output by stepped volume. You have to find. And comparison also we have done for different cases. For the same compression ratio, we have seen that Otto cycle is more efficient, and for the same maximum temperature and pressure, diesel cycle is more efficient. And comparison between Otto, diesel, and dual cycle for the same compression ratio and same heat input. Okay, heat input also is same. So here, again, we can see that Otto cycle is more efficient because whenever compression ratio is same, whatever is the difference, other things, so Otto cycle becomes more efficient. And Lanoir cycle, we have seen that there are only 3 processes in it: constant volume heat addition and constant pressure heat rejection. Here this is wrong, it is downward, okay, heat rejection. Okay, then here also we have derived the expression for efficiency in terms of pressure ratio. Pressure ratio is P2 by P1. And you can compare Lanoir cycle and Otto cycle. So only thing is Lanoir cycle is not found to be efficient because of lack of compression in this. And then coming to Atkinson cycle, so where I have constant volume heat addition and constant pressure heat rejection. And we can see the efficiency is a function of compression ratio and expansion ratio. Expansion ratio is V5 by V3. And here you can see comparison. And if you say this is Otto cycle, it is extended Otto cycle. So this piece is extended. And you can compare with efficiencies. So Otto cycle will have this as the heat rejection, and Atkinson cycle is this has heat rejection. So you can see that area is more, and work done is more in Atkinson cycle. Okay, Atkinson cycle is more efficient than Otto cycle, but it is not practical because of constant volume combustion, which needs valves to be operated at very high temperature. And then we have seen the Stirling cycle, which is having two isothermals and two isocores and isothermal heat addition and rejection. That's why this efficiency, if I have the regeneration perfect, then efficiency will be equal to Carnot cycle efficiency. In the same way, Ericsson cycle also we can see, instead of isocores, we will have isobars here. Here also regeneration, if it is proper, then its efficiency also is equal to Carnot cycle efficiency. And coming to the Brayton cycle, so as I told you already learned in turbo machines, and you can see that efficiency is a function of pressure ratio. It is 1 minus 1 by Rp to the power of gamma minus 1 by gamma. And its efficiency increases with pressure ratio. And you can see that there are two extremes of pressure ratio. If pressure ratio is 1, I will have 0 work done. And even if the pressure ratio is very high in such a way that it is compressed up to the maximum metallurgical limit, then also there will be 0 work done. And there is a particular point of pressure ratio which gives maximum work, and that is when T2 becomes equal to T4. Okay, and that's why I cannot have heat exchange. I can plan for heat exchanger because of that. So if my pressure ratio is less, T4 is very high, T2 is very less. So if I take this particular case, T4 is so high and T2 is so less, and I can use the heat exchanger to recover that. Okay, so heat exchanger can be used only when T4 is greater than T2. If T2 is greater, if you come to this case, T2 is very high and T4 is less, I cannot have heat exchanger because compressor, after compressor, the temperature is very high. After turbine, the temperature is very low. Okay, so only if your pressure ratio is greater than optimum pressure ratio, we have to use the heat exchanger. And so this is the Brayton cycle with regeneration. So this T4 should be greater than T2, right? And that's why if you see a perfect heat exchange cycle, if you have, right, the efficiency when R equal to 1, its efficiency will be equal to Carnot efficiency. As the pressure ratio increase, actually efficiency decrease, and at optimum pressure ratio, this will be equal to simple cycle efficiency. And you can think of intercooling and regeneration. As I told, intercooling reduces compressor work, and reheating increases the turbine work, by which I can increase the work done. Okay, but efficiency gets reduced because I'm adding some low efficiency cycles to the original simple cycle. And if I have heat exchanger, I can have large increase in the efficiency. And so if I can have infinite intercoolers and infinite reheaters, and if I can have regeneration perfect, then this efficiency will become Ericsson cycle efficiency, which is equal to Carnot efficiency. Okay, this is that all the cycles consolidated here. Total 8 cycles we have discussed. And Carnot cycle, 2 isentropics, isothermal heat addition and isothermal heat rejection. And Stirling cycle, 2 isocores, isothermal and isothermal heat addition and rejection. And Ericsson, 2 isobars, isothermal heat addition and rejection. So these 3 have the same efficiency. Wherever I have isothermal heat addition and rejection, they are purely reversible, and that's why these 3 will have the same efficiency. In the other cycles, 2 isentropics are common, and if there are 2 isochorics, heat addition and rejection, that is Otto cycle, and isobaric heat addition, isochoric heat rejection, diesel cycle, and Atkinson, isochoric heat addition, isobaric heat rejection, and Brayton cycle, both isobaric heat addition and rejection. Okay, these are the various cases we have studied. And actually there will be Lanoir cycle where 1 isentropic and isochoric heat addition, isobaric heat rejection. I have done that, but it didn't come here. Okay, this is the revision of 8 standard cycles. Any questions? Any questions? Okay, then we will go to the entropy problems. So we'll discuss first some of the relations, whatever we have come across in the entropy chapter. So first we have started with Clausius theorem, which is integral delta Q by T for reversible cycle, it is equal to 0, which we called it as a statement of second law of thermodynamics. And so for irreversible cycle, we found out that this is less than 0. So combining these two, we will get Clausius inequality, integral delta Q by T less than or equal to 0. And for reversible cycle, we get delta Q is equal to TdS. And if you have use this for a process, delta Q by T is found to be a change in property, which is ds. So ds is equal to delta Q by T reversible. So we also found that ds is greater than or equal to delta Q by T for irreversible or general process. And from that, we come to TdS relations. TdS is equal to du plus PdV, and TdS is equal to dH minus PdV, VdP. And you can see that delta Q is equal to TdS is true for only reversible cycles, and delta W is equal to PD only for reversible cycles. But when you combine these two, this is true for any cycle because there are only properties are there. Okay, so these two are called TdS relations, which are true for all processes. And so delta S is greater than or equal to 0. So this is for isolated system, right? Otherwise, it is delta Q by T. Okay, so isolated system delta Q is 0. That's why this we have taken it to be 0. So this delta S total, and if I take isolated system as system plus surroundings, which is the universe, right? So this must be greater than or equal to 0. So whatever happens, there will be increase in the entropy, and that is called as S generation, generation of entropy. So generation of entropy equal to 0 for reversible process, and it increases, so greater than 0 irreversible process, and it can never be less than 0. So that's why if it is less than 0, it is impossible. This is what is called as increase of entropy principle. And also we have seen entropy change for a pure substance, how to find out about it. And if I know it is in saturated condition, I can find out for any given pressure and temperature from the tables SF and SG I can find out. If I know the dryness fraction, so S2 is equal to SF2 plus X2 SFG2. So in that way, you can find out the entropy for a wet mixture. Okay, if it is superheated, I can find out from the superheated tables, go to P3 table and go to P3 row, and I can get this. And if it is compressed liquid, you can take entropy is equal to SF at that particular T temperature. Okay, so at that particular temperature, find out SF, and that can be taken to be SF at for the compressed liquid portion. And entropy changes M delta S, M into S2 minus S1. It is for the total change in entropy. This is specific change in entropy. And TdS relations, it comes from the TdS relations. TdS relation, change in entropy. Okay, so S2 minus S1 is Cv log T2 by T1 plus R log V2 by V1. This is one relation. And Cp log T2 by T1 minus R log T2 by T1. This is another relation. As I told, we will get third relation also. Cv log P2 by T1 plus Cp log V2 by V1. Like that, we will get another relation. Based on the process, I can use any relation. Right? If it is isoporic, use this relation, which makes it 0. If it is isobaric, use this, it will become 0. And if it is isothermal, you can use any of them because one of them will become 0. And this is mass basis. If it is a unit mole basis, instead of R here, I will have universal gas constant here. Instead of CpCv on mass basis, kilojoule per kg Kelvin, I will have Cv bar and Cp bar, which is kilojoule per kilomole Kelvin. Okay. So these also will be available in the database. Okay, normally we don't get problems of this sort. We use on kg basis only. Usually for chemical engineers, they always talk about moles and universal gas constant and Cv bar. Chemical engineers will use. Okay, and so when you consider a closed system, and so for adiabatic closed system, S generation is equal to S of adiabatic system, and system plus surroundings, S gen is equal to sigma delta S of system plus delta S of surroundings. If there is a heat transfer takes place between system and surroundings, right? System's entropy temperature change. Okay, so delta S of system or entropy change is equal to m into S2 minus S1. But for surroundings, what we have to do is we have to find out what is the heat transfer from the system to the surroundings, or in the vice versa, and by T of surroundings. Usually, this is very important when we do later the problems. Okay. So we have to see whether the body temperature is same or varying. If the body temperature is same, I have to use this particular relation. If body temperature is changing, then you have to use Cp log T2 by T1 or Cv log T2 by T1. Okay, for a control volume, the rate of change of entropy for the control volume is equal to the rate of mass entering into its entropy, rate of mass leaving. So this is the rate of net entropy entering into the system plus generation of entropy. And if there is any heat transfer, sigma q dot k by Tk. So these are the reasons. So this is entropy change because of the mass, and this is entropy change because of the heat transfer, and this is entropy generation because of irreversibility. And this total makes the control volume entropy to change. Okay, so this is an unsteady flow general equation. If I have steady flow, this dSCV by dt will be 0, and I will have only these. Okay, so S dot gen is equal to, I can write in this way. If there is a steady flow single stream, then m dot I is equal to m dot IE is equal to m dot into SC minus SI minus this. Okay, so if it is steady flow single stream and adiabatic, then this will be 0, and generation of entropy is equal to m dot into SC minus SC. It is only because some mass entering and leaving, its entropy change. Because it is entering with some entropy and leaving with some entropy, there will be change in the entropy of the system, and also the entropy generation will be there. Okay, these are the problems we will see. 10 grams, actually we have done some 2 problems when we have discussed the entropy chapter. So 10 grams of water at 20 degrees centigrade is converted into ice at minus 10 degrees centigrade at constant atmospheric pressure. Assuming the specific heat of liquid of water remain constant at 4.2 joule per kg Kelvin, and that of ice to be half of this value, that is 2.1, and taking the latent heat of fusion of ice 0 degrees centigrade to be G35 joule per gram, calculate the total entropy change of the system. Okay, so how do we take it? As we have seen, there are 3 steps. Okay, so actually, the problem which we have discussed already, it is going from ice to water, and now this particular problem, water to ice. Okay, so there are 3 stages: sensible heat removal, latent heat removal, and again sensible heat removal will be there. So it is initially at 20 degrees centigrade. First, it has to become 0 degrees centigrade, right? So 0 degrees centigrade of water. So this is 293 Kelvin, and it is going to 273 Kelvin. So the change in entropy will be Cp log T2 by T1, right? That is Cp log 273 by 293 will be change in entropy for the water going from 20 degrees centigrade to 0 degrees centigrade. And then it goes from 0 degrees centigrade water to 0 degrees centigrade ice. Okay, so here the temperature is not changed, and so only heat transfer is there. And what is the amount of heat transfer? It is latent heat of fusion of ice. So 335 kilojoule per kg. So this Q by T I have to put, that is 335 by 273 Kelvin. Okay, so that is the change in entropy during the phase change. And then it is going to minus 10 degrees centigrade of ice. So again, the 273 degrees Kelvin becomes 263 Kelvin. So again, Cp log T2 by T1. Here Cp of ice I have to take, which is 2.1. Okay, so that is the way I will get change in entropy in the water phase, in the change of phase, and in the ice phase. Okay, so 3 change of entropies, all the total, if you take, I will get the total entropy change of the system. So everywhere there is a decrease in the temperature or heat is lost to the surroundings. So that's why its entropy decrease. Okay, it is system only. I am talking about system. I am not talking about surroundings here. So if there is a drop in the system entropy, there will be corresponding increase of entropy in the surroundings. I am not interested in that. In this problem, you are asked to calculate the total change in entropy of the system only. Okay, so that is the way it is done. Okay, so it is coming from 293 to 273 here, and then it is changing its phase, and then it is coming to 268. Okay, so we have to find out delta S12, delta S23, delta S34. So this is the way we find out S2 minus S1, MCP dt by T. So MCP and log 273 by 293. It is going from 273 by 293. So it will become negative. Okay, this is going because it is going from 293 to 273. So it is coming 273 by 293. It will become negative. And S3 minus S2 minus ml by T. Okay, so this is latent heat, and this is the constant temperature 273. And S4 minus S3 again MCP log T2 by T1. The CP is half of the water CP, so it is 4.2 by 2. That is the way I can find out the entropy change in all the three phases. Okay, so that is the way we have to calculate it. We will see another problem. Calculate the entropy change of the universe as a result of the following processes. A copper block of 600 grams of mass with Cp of 150 joule per Kelvin at 100 degrees centigrade. Here actually, this particular problem, here Cp, capital C it is given. It is not specific heat. It is joule per Kelvin. It is MCP. Okay, so this is M into Cp it is given. That particular thing you have to understand. It is not joule per kg Kelvin. It is joule per Kelvin. Okay, so this is MCP. At 100 degrees centigrade is placed in a lake at 8 degrees centigrade. It is asked to find out the entropy change of the universe. So that is when a copper block is put into the lake, right, which is at 100 degrees centigrade, block is at 100 degrees centigrade, and the lake is at 8 degrees centigrade. So copper block cools to 8 degrees centigrade. So it loses heat. So there will be a decrease in entropy of the block. But at the same time, some heat is taken by the lake. Okay, but its temperature remain constant. So for the block, I will use Cp log T2 by T1. And for the lake, I have to use Q by T. And what is the Q? Q I have to find out as Cp dt. Okay, MCP dt or Cp dt here. So Cp of block is this, and dt is 100 minus 8. So that gives Q. So in that way, I have to find out both of the things. Okay. So delta S of copper is MCP dt by T. MCP is 150, and the log, it is going from 373 to 281 degrees centigrade, 100 degrees centigrade to 8 degrees centigrade. So 281 by 373. So this becomes negative because it is losing. And the delta S of lake, first we have to find out what is the heat transfer. Heat transfer is Cp dt, Cp into 100 minus 8. So this is the heat that is taken by the lake from the copper block, okay, by 281. So this gives the entropy increase of the lake, okay, and then the total is these two, okay. So 49 minus 42, it is almost comes to 6.63. So this is the way I have to find out. And another case is given the same block at 8 degrees centigrade is dropped from a height of 100 meters into the lake. Okay, what is that I have to do here? The block is dropped from, it is having 600 grams of mass. It is dropped from a height of 100 meters into the lake. Is there anything going to happen? What is that going to happen? Can you just tell me?
Potential energy creates heat.
Yeah, that's right. And what happens to change in entropy of this copper block? The block also is everything okay? Okay. Okay, here the second case we are discussing about, a block at 8 degrees centigrade is dropped from a height of 100 meters into the lake. Okay, so if you see the block itself, there is no change in its temperature, so there is no heat transfer from the block Okay, so and its temperature is not changing, and so its entropy remains constant. The change in entropy for the block is 0, but it is transferring its potential energy to the lake in the form of heat. Okay, so we have to find out what is the amount of heat transfer, which is equal to the potential energy. Okay, change in potential energy, that is mgh. Okay, m is known, and g is 9.81, and h is 100 meters. You can find out that work, which is equal to heat, and the temperature is constant for the lake. So that mgh by 273 plus 8, that is 281. That's you have to be careful about substituting the temperatures. You have to put in Kelvin. If you are finding the change in temperature, no problem. You can put in centigrade. But whenever you use the temperature separately in the multiplication or division or anything, you have to put it in Kelvin. Okay, that is the way I can find out what is the change in entropy of the lake, and the total entropy change is 0 plus that. Okay, and another thing, two such blocks, 100 degrees centigrade and 0 degrees centigrade, are joined together. So there will be heat transfer taking place between these two. I have to find out what is the final temperature. Because both blocks are similar, the final temperature of both the blocks will become 50 degrees centigrade only. So its temperature decrease from 100 to 50, and the other will increase from 0 to 50. Okay, so you have to find out what is the change in this entropy and this entropy. Cp log T2 by T1 for this, and Cp log T2 by T1 for the other, and you have to add both of them. Here surroundings will not come into picture. Okay, so we can see what is the way it is done. Okay, this first case we have discussed, and in the second case, delta S of copper block is 0, and delta S of lake, that is W equal to Q by 281. This W is mgh, that is 0.6 mass into 9.81 into 100 height, 100 meters. So this is the heat transfer. By 281, we will get this, and 0 plus delta. So this is the change in entropy. Here, the change in entropy of the universe is positive, because for block it is 0, for the lake, because heat is given to it through energy, so its entropy increase. Okay, then the third case, when two blocks are joined together, one is at 100 and another is 0. So you have to find out what is the final temperature. Okay, if the mass, say specific, and if there are different masses or different materials, I have to find out what is MCP dt of the MCP of that and MCP of this, and what is that final temperature. I have to find out. Okay, in later problems we are going to have such thing, but here it is just the average of those two, 50, 323, and for the first body, Cp log T final by T1, and the second also T final by T2, and here it becomes 323 by 373. So final temperature is 50, that is 323. Initial temperature is 100, 373. For the second block, final temperature is 50, 323. Initial temperature is 273. And I have to find out the total. And this becomes 3.638. Okay, this is the way we have to go about finding out the total change in entropy. Okay, we will see another problem. A system maintained at constant volume is initially at temperature T1, and a heat reservoir at the lower temperature T0 is available. Show that the maximum work recoverable as the system is cooled to T0 is, okay, you have to prove it. I didn't give the expression, but you have to find out what is the maximum work recoverable. Okay, what is the way we have to go about it? I have a body, a high temperature body at T1. I have surroundings at low temperature, T0 is available. So what is the maximum work I can recover? Whenever I have a system with higher temperature than the surroundings, so it is possible to recover some heat using a heat engine. So I have to assume there is a heat engine working between this body at T1 and the surroundings are low temperature reservoir at T0. Okay, so I have to find out what is the change in the entropy of the system, and change in entropy of the engine, and change in entropy of the sink, and this total change in the entropy should be greater than or equal to 0 according to the second law, and based on that I have to find out what is the maximum work. Okay, so that is the way I have to go about it. So if you just think about the system, it is like this. So I have T1 here, here T0 here. I have a heat engine producing W. If the heat taken from here is Q1, so the heat taken by the sink is Q1 minus W. Okay. So here I assume a reversible heat engine. So change in entropy of this is equal to 0. And for this, what is the change in entropy? I have initial temperature is T1 and final temperature is T0. So Cp log T0 by T1 will give me the change in entropy of this system. And I have to find out what is the heat given to this. So for this, first I have to find out what is the heat taken from here. So Cp dt. Okay, so that is specific heat into dt, change in temperature, right? So T1 minus T0, and that gives, and minus W gives the heat to this. So this, so W is the unknown there. Okay, anyhow, this change in entropy of this is equal to Q1 minus W by T0. So I add these things, and I have to put greater than or equal to 0, where W is the unknown. That W I have to get an expression. Okay, so that is the way I have to do. Delta S of body, Cv log dt by T going from T1 to T0. So Cv log T0 by T1. And delta S of reservoir cycle, it is 0. Delta S of reservoir, Q minus W by T0. Okay, so this total should be greater than or equal to 0. And where Q is Cv into T1 minus T0. Here it can be Cv or Cp, whatever specific heat is given, just you can put in that. Okay, and substitute there, and I will get an expression for W. Just okay, Q is equal to Cv into T1 minus T0, you substitute and get an expression in terms of W. W on the left side, push all the things to the right side. I'm going to get what is the maximum work that I can extract from the body. Okay, so here I am doing in symbols. Okay, in the exam, I may not give this T0, T1, W or all these things. I can give you there is a reservoir at this particular temperature, and I have surroundings at this particular temperature, and you find out what is the maximum work that I can extract. So you need only the specific heat and 2 temperatures. So you can find out what is the maximum work that can be extracted from that system. Okay, so this is the way we have to do. Any doubts? Is it clear? Shall I go to the next problem? Okay, we'll go to the next problem. Each of 3 identical bodies satisfies the equation U equal to Ct. Okay, so this is not necessary, just it is given like that, where C is the heat capacity. So heat capacity means MC. Okay, so mass need not be given separately. Their initial temperatures 200, 250, and 540. If C is 8.4 kilojoule per Kelvin, what is the maximum amount of work that can be extracted in a process in which these bodies brought to a final common temperature? I have a high temperature reservoir 540. There are 2 low temperature reservoirs, right? And so what is the maximum amount of work that can be extracted? So what I have to do is now I can assume 2 engines, okay, working one between 540 and 200, another between 540 and 250, okay. So, and again, you do the similar analysis, whatever we have done previously. So you can assume high temperature reservoir here, one low temperature here, another low temperature here. So this is 540 Kelvin, this is 200 Kelvin, this is 250 Kelvin. So I can assume so this is producing some work, this is producing some work. Maybe you can take W1, W2. If this is taking Q1 and this is taking Q2. So this may be Q1 minus W1. This is Q2 minus W2. Okay. So this is the way we have to do. And the total heat taken from the reservoir is Q1 plus Q2. And the total work developed is equal to W is equal to W1 plus W2. Okay. And so I can find out now initial temperature, what is that, and final temperature, and what is the heat that is transferred, everything in terms of expressions we have to do. Okay, something like this I can assume. And so W is equal to W1 plus W2, Q is equal to Q1 plus Q2, and delta S of 540 kilo. So I don't know what is the final temperature of all the three. You assume that TF is the final temperature. First, I have to solve for TF. Then only I can do what is the other things. Okay. So for the 540K body, it is going from 540 to TF. Okay. Then for 250K body, 250 to TF and 200 to TF. So if I add all these things, right, and for heat engines, the change in entropy is 0. So sum of these three should be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, if I add all these things, actually, because it is in log, I have to multiply. So TF cube by this you will get. And 0 is log 1. So TF cube is equal to, is greater than or equal to product of this. So 540 into 250 into 200, and cube root of this becomes 300 Kelvin. Okay, that is the way I can find out final temperature. Once I know the final temperature, I can find out change in entropy of all the three bodies, right? And also I can find out what is the heat transfer. Q is equal to, because 8.4 to this high temperature body 540, it is going to 300. The total heat transfer is equal to 8.4 into 540 minus 300. 8.4 is the CT, or specific that heat capacity. And so Q1 minus W1 is 8.4 into 300 minus T50, and Q2 minus W2 is 8.4 into 300 minus T200. So this I will get Q1, Q2. And so Q1 plus Q2 minus of W1 plus W2 is equal to 1260. And Q1 plus Q2 is already found out here, that is 2016. So 2016 minus 1260, that is 756 kilojoules. Okay, so this is the maximum work that can be extracted. Okay, only thing is what I am doing is I am assuming some final temperature for all the three. Okay, so finding out what is the change in entropy for this, and what is the heat transfer from each. Okay, Q1, Q2, everything I can find. Okay, that is the way I have to go about it. Now coming to another problem, a reversible power cycle R and an irreversible power cycle I operate between the same two reservoirs. Each receives QH from a hot reservoir. The reversible cycle develops work WR, while irreversible cycle develops a work WI. Evaluate the rate of entropy generation for cycle I. For irreversible cycle, I have to find out what is the rate of entropy generation in terms of WI, WR, and TC. So just if you where is that board? So if you see now, we can draw the figure like this, and we have two reservoirs, high temperature reservoir and low temperature reservoir, and I have a heat engine, reversible engine, and there is an irreversible engine, both taking QH and QH. But when you come to the, and this is producing WR and this is producing WI, and this is if you take QC, and this will be different because irreversible cycle will have less efficiency. It rejects more heat. So QC dash is greater than QC. Okay. So this is the way first we have to draw. Okay, something like this. And then because I know that for irreversible cycle, if I take only irreversible cycle, here QH is there and QC dash is there. So here the entropy change is QH by TH, here QC dash by TC, and this total should be equal to the irreversibility. Okay, so our the change in entropy for the irreversible engine. So, and QH is equal to WR plus QC. So here QH is equal to WR plus QC, and here QH also equal to WI plus QC dash. So WR plus QC is equal to WI plus QC dash. So based on that, I can find out what is QC dash. And this QC dash can be substituted with this expression. And then we will get a single expression like this. And since R is reversible, QH by TH is equal to QC by TC for reversible. So from that, I can see that this particular term will become 0, and I am going to get WR minus WI by TC. Okay, this is the way I can find out what is the change in entropy for the irreversible engine. Okay. So quickly we will see another problem. 3 identical finite bodies of constant heat capacity are at temperatures 300, 300, and 100. If no work or heat is supplied from outside, what is the highest temperature to which any of the bodies can be raised by the operation of heat engines or refrigerators? Okay, so I have to find out what is the final temperature. So here I have 300 Kelvin, 300 Kelvin, and 100 Kelvin. So I assume there is a heat engine working between these two and a refrigerator to supply heat to this. So here there will be decrease in the entropy, and here there will be increase in the entropy for this. Assume all of them come to some TF, and this TF I have to solve for. Okay. And delta S of A, B, C, all the 3 reservoirs, because I'm assuming TF is the final temperature. Okay, this is getting reduced and this is getting increased. Okay, so that's why I will take this as TF and this as TF dash. Okay, so this is C TF by 300 for A, and the TF by 100 for B, and TF dash by 300. And for heat engine and refrigerator, the change in entropy is 0. And sum of all of them, if you take, this should be greater than or equal to 0. So I will get TF square TF dash by 9 into 10 power 6 equal to 0, which is equal to log 1. So TF square TF dash is equal to 9 milliamps. Okay. And we can find out Q1 is equal to Qt is equal to, because C dt, I can find out these expressions. And so heat removed from body is equal to heat discharged to bodies B and C. So that is Q2 plus Q4. And so solving this, I will get TF dash in terms of TF. So I'm getting 2 expressions. One is this equation and another is this equation. I have to solve them to get TF and TF dash. And TF is 150, TF dash is 400. So like this, we can solve the problem. Okay, you go through these problems. Actually, these problems are taken from the entropy exercise of Peek-and-Ogg. So because those book problems are good, so we have solved those problems. You can go to the workload examples. You have to go through the worksheets I have given, right? So that you will gain confidence. So I think because it's 11:03, right? We can stop here. Any doubts? Is it okay? Okay, slip in centrifugal compressor. Okay, we'll see if there is any other doubt from thermodynamics. Otherwise, we will talk about it. Any doubts in thermodynamics? So the next minor will be on Saturday at our regular time, and it will be on the complete mid portion. On the whole mid portion we will have. So